All right, folks. Hey, welcome on back here for another fantastic edition of our live workshop each and every Monday afternoon, or perhaps morning, wherever you may be residing. Welcome back to Traders Talk. I'm Josh Levitan. Great to have all of our students and members alike just back inside our live trading room. Great to see Grant, Phil, Scott, Roberto, Mike, Bell. I got Barbara here, Mike, Lynn, and Randy, Margaret, Lawrence. Got the L's and the M's trying to trip me up right there in our live trading room. But great to have all of us back, though. Otherwise, all of us on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, YouTube, wherever you may be residing there on the socials, just down below, right below me at Cypher Trading U. If you are new to our channel, new to our stream, just make sure to hit the follow or like button right down below. Subscribe, rather, I should say. But listen, we have a move right now. It's just still going. This thing's just taking off right in front of us still. The V-Wave trade, Vision Wave Holdings. I'm just asking to ask right now, solely out of curiosity for all of our members inside our room. Anyone still in on this trade right now? I mean, a lot of us took our money, rightfully so, from earlier. You know that reversal time's around 10:30 Eastern. So for anyone like still trying to ride this out, I'm cheerleading you on. But I know that most of us pretty much took our money, rightfully so, and we're very happy with doing that because A, not every stock in the market's gonna, move up 200% all day, let alone maybe more. And then, like I just said, all day, we know reversal times around 10:30. So it's not as easy for us to just have full confidence and say, oh, we're just going to have this go up to $8 today by 12 o'clock Eastern, right? No, I mean, that's where even for someone like Phil, who's been with us for a long while, I've been working with him for a bit in the coaching program, much like a lot of us. He knows you can get in and out several times. You should not try and hold on to this trade from the morning session. If I tried to do that for every single time I was trading the market open, then probably a lot less often than it actually happens would I be able to make money. Meaning I might be up a lot of money at some point, but if I just kick my feet back and like assume it's going to keep going up, many of these trades just pull back and die off. If not at 10:30, then of course just at some point. Look at LIDR, right? This thing's cooked. This thing is done. See ya. It was a great trade from last week, this LIDR trade, just to go through. It popped up one afternoon from $1, popped up higher in pre-market that morning. Then even Friday led to a great intraday move. You could jump in and out of this, and you should not be trying to hold on and shoot for the stars because, whether it's common stock offering or whether bad news comes out, let alone, or just natural profit taking. Like I said, most stocks don't go up as much as LIDR did. Well, same to be said eventually, folks, for the V-Wave trade. So don't feel bad if you left money on the table here for this type of stock. Before I even go into this move and explain what happened here, not even from the market open session, but from pre-market. We had our eyes on this as soon as it popped. But more than anything, I just want to say, if any of us here left money on the table for this stock, meaning if you took some good profit, but it kept moving on up after without you, think of it like this, right? Let me ask Grant and Phil and Abdul and Chuck and Debbie, great to see. Celio, I have here in our trading room. Get some other names here. Jason, always great to see Jason join us here. You got Joyce, Millard, Roberto, all of us just joining us here inside our room, right? Let me ask you a quick question, right? Because this is how I think of it. When you go out to a restaurant, when you go out to a nice steakhouse, a nice Italian restaurant, you get chicken parm, do you get more upset about leaving food on your plate at the end of the meal as you are happy with the meal that you just enjoyed? You know what I mean? Like, are you actually more upset about leaving food on your table? Like, oh man, I didn't eat that fifth of my chicken parm. Oh my God. Are you actually more upset about leaving the food on the table than you are with the meal that you just really enjoyed? I assume the answer is no, because most human beings don't think that way, right? Abdul, Barbara, Grantlin, and Randy, right? So yeah, you should be happy about leftovers. Right? Take them back. So there's a little divergence there in this comparison, but it's just to mention that here, if you leave money on the table, if the stock wants to prove itself to you, then you have the chance to jump back in. Just don't do it recklessly. Don't do it without any strategy or just without a big level. But otherwise, hey, if this tops off at 10:30, as it pretty much did here at first, and then came down, there's plenty of other stocks out there that you could try and get your hands on. For any of our students here that, or not even students, but trial members testing our room out for this week, of course, that we've been on top of Tesla as much as we've been on top of this V-Wave trade. So, Let's at least begin from the start here, from pre-market hours. What led this stock to pop as much as it did? When did we call this stock out at first? So pretty much right when I logged inside the trading room, it was the first comment I see here with this stock, V-Wave, and a bunch of us were in on it at first. I saw Grant talking about it. Carlos and Kathleen took some early profits on this trade, but pretty much right at the first pop, I had mentioned V-Wave pop just because I'm on my Benzinga scanner here and kind of have my eyes on this throughout the morning. And all of a sudden, I see a stock here shooting up big percentage wise. So just take a look at the chart, just toss it out to our students inside our room. But immediately from there, this is where the strategy part played out. So I had mentioned before, of course, that you want to make sure that if you're taking a trade, whether it's on this or any other stock, you got to have a big level, right? You can't just jump in, and you can't just jump in because it's going up off of news. If I did that for every time I was trading, I wouldn't be here as like an instructor, let alone a trader. You know what I mean? So that's just where I'll tell you here. We need to have a big level. The stock needs to break through that big level on the way up, right? And I'll even phrase it this way because that's how it worked out later on here. But Carlos, Wendy, great to see. Uday, always great to see joining us. Thomas, who else we got here? Norman, we got Marcella joining us. Always great to see her. And Jonathan L. I'm going up in chat now, but for a stock to break resistance and is running after it broke resistance, what are we looking for that resistance to flip into, folks? Simply put, right? Because we cover this each and every week here in this live workshop. And of course, we hammer that point home big in class, right? We're looking for resistance to flip into support. So it's just to say that here, if this can blast above a resistance, then I'll look to see if it could become support later on. So V-Wave, 8:36 in the morning, small historical area, 378 to 386, just that combined area. I'll show you what I meant there. Just, it's not just about the level and telling you, it's about showing you. Like, why was Josh focused on that price as a potential level? Well, the first thing actually on this trade, I just want to point out, you can't trust this stock as far as you could throw it. It's a new IPO, right? So as a new student here, trial member, even as like Josh the trader here, I've been with Fausto for 11 years. There's a lot of reluctancy and a lot of hesitancy with taking a stock that you've never seen trade before, right? If you've been around the block inside our live trading room most days of the week, most weeks of the month, most months of the calendar year, then, unless if it's an IPO, you've seen a lot of these trades before. And for IPOs, you definitely can't trust them right away. Now, here with this, I do want to point out, you have a little top here back on July 15th, 386. Little top here from the 17th, 378. So I used basically these two tops to say, all right, well, that seems pretty close in price. So if this wants to run higher later on, it needs to flip that into a support. So, the playbook was given to everyone as early as 8:36 a.m. That's where I jumped in. I got in at 382 is my entry price. So it led to a pretty good pullback. And then from there, the better bounce happened. This was all before the market even opened up. So here's 386. Here's 378, pardon me. There's the break above resistance. And there's Josh's entry. I'm in at 380. So I got filled at 380, not 82. Point being is that I'm looking for this exact move as I type it out to Grant, Kathleen, Lynn, and Randy, Dave, Debbie, all. Hey, there's a reason why I'm calling out these levels, right? Maybe it could have just held and then pulled back. So there could have been a loss involved, right? I'm not just showing you this trade because I made money on it. I'm showing you this trade because the stock went up to $8+ afterwards. So, of course, there was a lot of money to take here. But even if you didn't jump in when we had called the stock out first off this historical area, then where were the better levels later on for after the market opened? I didn't jump back into this trade after I got out. I took the first half out at like 438, the second half out at 459. So I felt really justified with that profit. Again, if we knew everything ahead of time, right? You and I wouldn't be doing this on a Monday. You know what I mean? So I mean that you and myself, right? So that's just where I have no problem taking the money once I'm up a reasonable amount. I was up about like 70, 80 cents per share on the trade for a cheap $3, $4 stock. That's a pretty big move. You know what I mean? That's a decently sized move after. That's a big move shortly after, right? So not only that, it's a Monday morning in the middle of the summer, right? So we have the big market makers out there enjoying their long weekends. And if I was one, I'd be doing the same thing, right? So that's just where I'll tell you, you want to take Mondays and Fridays pretty like slow, passive. If there is anything that you're confident in taking, you're probably just more keen to take some money off the table and feel justified with it. So in the grand scheme of like, oh, do I wish I had my shares from 380 again? Uh, duh. Yeah, of course. At this point, I wish, I held on, or I wish, I jumped back in on this trade. I ended up focusing in on a couple of other moves. The NVTS, the HIMS trade made some money on after the open. So I didn't even jump back into this trade myself after the market opened. But it just goes to show that this area once again became a pretty good entry. It knocked into it as resistance here, rightfully so, because it broke below it as support. So that's easy to say. But the more it keeps stabbing and pressing the level, then there's the better prospect of that new move. But even now, let's just go into Bookmap and I'll show you where the real levels are, or obviously from earlier were. This was not easy to look at in pre-market if you were mainly focused on Bookmap. Just to say, like the icebergs were all over the place here on the bid side, just a hot mess. You got a bunch of these orders on the bid popping up, disappearing, popping up here, moving lower. It's just a shit show, and I mean that like seriously. If this is hard for you to read, don't use this stock. There's other fishies out there in the stock market for us to grab. Now, is there a more clear level though that we could use outside of all of like the weird stuff going on? Even here, you got some weird things happening where you have volume on the ask getting pulled and moved up higher, then it gets placed here. Well, it seems like from 8:50 in the morning, 8:55, this here at 5:55, $5.55, about 25,000 shares. As long as this thing's out here going into the market open, it's staying out there. They're not moving it. They're not messing with that order. I'll respect it. If there's an orange line that goes across the screen for a longer period of time, at least that I'll trust more. So I don't like any of this crap at first. I still can't trust it because it might show up again later on, all the, quick little short-lived orange lines. But at least this here at 555, I'll trust before the market opens up. Now, I'll trust this. I'll also just kind of rely simply on 50-cent levels and whole numbers. I at least will assume that, right? So 350, 450, you should still assume for those to be levels. And that's where at $5 there, okay, well, it's your largest order here that pops up. This is right before the market even opens here. But listen, it only just showed up before the opening bell hit. And maybe it's this person that moved their order up. Just kind of seeing that. But point being is that 5 is a level anyway. $5 is a key level to focus on here, irregardless. So these are two resistances at 5 and then 555. Okay. How about this? Let's see if I can get this right here for all of our members inside our live trading room. It's kind of tough. I don't want to ask because it might come off a little tough to answer. Just notice right here on my CVP. Notice on the far right side, my CVP, histogram. You could see it's like kind of right off of $4, but it's technically 407, 408, 407 area. That in itself could also be a level to watch. So just want to point out, at least in terms of volume, it wasn't easy to look at initially. But if you're focused around your 50-cent levels and whole numbers, then you're looking at $4, that 406 kind of area together. So it looks like it just kind of did the same thing here, right? It kept poking it, poking it, poking it. The more it does that in a smaller compression, smaller time frame, you're going to get that eventual big move shortly after. So that's kind of easy to say after the fact. But even if we focus on like $5, okay, well, same thing happened here, right? Pretty much. It kind of crashed into $5 at first. It kept poking it a couple more times after here. Then the more it does it, especially we're not at 10:30 in the morning yet. So I didn't take this trade coming up here, this one, but this would have been really nice to focus on. The more it keeps pressing up against 5, then it leads to a pretty clean re-entry. And, if you're looking for a big move shortly after, you're looking at least go until 10:15, 10:30 in the morning in terms of cyber clock, in terms of reversal time there. But otherwise, just, hey, if your next resistance is at 6 and it's breaking higher right here, let's see. Well, I'll tell you, it doesn't really seem like there is a real resistance next up top. I would kind of have to manipulate this here and just see. There's our 550, 555 area. After that, not much. So this was like the dream scenario because, quite frankly, it's easy to say in hindsight that this just kept going up. But this is where I tell you, most stocks don't just keep going up throughout the day because eventually you'll see some sort of iceberg join the ask, like a new resistance that spikes the stock down. So it's easy to say that this just kept going up, 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 especially once it broke out of this area, $5, 550. Um, let's see, was there any new larger sell order, at least compared to these lines that we had from earlier? Maybe something at 7. Something at 7 showed up a little bit later on here. This is actually a lot closer to 10:30 in the morning, at least reversal hour. So if you're focused on 10:30, and at least now here you have a larger resistance, all right, this would be a pretty ideal spot if you didn't already take the money and just get the hell out. Because again, it's nice to say it kept moving up, but hey, if 7 is such a big level as resistance, the more that this resistance keeps getting poked at, eventually, you get breakout, but more importantly, after it breaks out from resistance, then you're looking for the flippening of that into support. At this point in the morning, especially with it up so much and at 10:30 or 11:30 in the morning here even, I didn't jump into it from this point, right? But I'm a lot more hesitant here because, hey, even though it's testing resistance numerous times, you think eventually the music's got to stop in this game of musical chairs, right? Much like it did with LIDR earlier. And this reversed not at 10:30. This reversed a hell of a lot earlier than 10:30. So, it's not to guarantee that 10:30 is the reversal time for every one of these trades. But going back to the V wave one, hey, all right. So if this keeps testing resistance, maybe it could lead to a breakout. And if we miss the breakout, don't beat yourself up in that moment because that's where you're anticipating at the minimum. All right, well, maybe $7 could flip into a support level on the initial test. So to kind of see it crash under over, I know it's easy to say after the fact, but this is really clean. As long as we don't go back down below 7 here, there's a pretty clean entry opportunity. So just pointing out, I don't mind taking trades from higher price levels if there's more conviction to. I don't mind waiting to see resistance get like cleanly broken over first, and then to then see the flipping of that into support. Either way, anything that gives me more confidence to jump into a trade, I'll do it. And then if I don't have the confidence to jump in, then like I'd mentioned before, there's other fishies out here in the stock market for us to grab, right? So real quick, let me know if you have any questions regarding the V-Wave trade. I had a couple emails that came in from chat just before, and also one right now from Lynn and Randy. Let's see. Where did you get your low float number this morning on V-Wave? We still can't find. Yeah, so very good question there. So Lynn and Randy was just asking about the float on Benzinga, or they're asking about the float on the stock. And normally we will search like Benzinga Pro, Benzinga. They're really good. But funny enough, they didn't really show a float at all for this stock today. So right here, right, V-Wave, they're actually up because they announced a $55 million AI deal for defense solutions. Again, if every stock made a 200 plus move, off of AI defense news like this, we wouldn't be doing this every day, right? But otherwise, you're right. Float looks non-existent, right? So it's a good segue because I was going to bring this up at some point myself. So this is where, remember from last week, we had a good conversation about Chat GPT and AI and just, they're all going to be pretty reliable, right? So funny enough, early this morning, I did this before the market even opened, just letting you know. What is the float for a stock V-Wave? 3.03 million shares. That's what Market Watch reports. It gives you a rundown. 3.03 million basically is what it's showing. Now, I actually cross-referenced that with Perplexity, and Perplexity just gave basically the same answer right here, 3 million shares. Now, this is where I tell you, though, like, look what happened to LIDR. Wasn't LIDR like a low float stock too? And then that got clipped just this morning off of offering news of its own. So I will go as far as to say that within this week, my shoot from the hip guess is that V-Wave is going to get the same news. If this is some real company that's going to come out with some like great product or AI defense solution deal, if big companies want to work with them, these companies are so low volume, low float, low number of outstanding shares. they oftentimes need to do common stock or direct stock offerings. So, that's where you see all of these things from recent here. BMNR, that had a few over the last month or so. I can go down the whole list if you want me to, but otherwise, yeah, today it was the LIDR that got bit. You had no idea that was going to happen until all of a sudden it tanked. News came out, it got halted, and then obviously it just dropped off much lower. So, point being is that I don't mind leaving money on the table because the last thing I ever want to happen is for me to be in that type of trade on the way down off of that type of like offering or direct common stock offering news. So it's okay to take trades, but you better make sure that your stop is set, right? Um, again, we don't say it just to say it. Imagine jumping into this trade from earlier and not having your stop set, or maybe even if you tried to set it. Remember, we teach you in class a very specific protocol or process on how to set your stop limit order. If you're not doing what we're teaching you in class, there's a pretty good shot that you're still stuck in this trade. And it's so important. You got to make sure your seatbelt is on right away. Your seatbelt is snug. It's not loose, right? I kind of give the driving example there, but it makes sense. All right. Let's see. I think that there was a question that came in early, and I said I wrote it down, but between you and me, I lied. I didn't, and I was going to try and remember it here. So let's go to Michael P, because I remembered it. Michael P had a question from earlier inside our live trading room. So Michael was asking, can you speak of the total shares at the bottom of the NASDAQ book viewer? NASDAQ book viewer is the program that we nickname level 3. Pretty much it's this year. This is on my TradeStation platform, right? So more or less that's built in. So I kind of just lean on that a bit. But if your platform doesn't have like a program for order flow or buy and sell orders, then simply that's where we just recommend at the minimum get NASDAQ book viewer, 15 bucks a month right from the NASDAQ website. So let's go over a couple trades. LIDR right now. Simple question here, folks. From the last hour and a half to 3 hours, what's the trend of this stock, right? What's the trend of this stock live as we're talking to you here? It is down, it is flat, it is down, right? So what Michael's asking here pretty much is if you look on the bottom of my NASDAQ book viewer, look on the bottom, there's these little numbers or metrics here for total shares on the buy side down below, and then total shares on the sell side down below. See that there? So technically what this is, trying to show us is that there is about 1.3 million shares on the ask of the order book right now routed through NASDAQ, and about 507,000 shares being routed through the NASDAQ on the buy side. So just based off of that comparison, who's winning this battle when you're looking at those two numbers? When you're looking at those two numbers right there on the very bottom of my screen, who's winning that very battle right there? The sellers, right? So that is where my assumption is, unless if this stock is clearly trending upward, then my thought is it's probably not worth jumping into. So, these are probably sellers that missed the boat already, that may have bought up top and now they're trying to sell much lower. Maybe they bought from down below here and they're trying to sell, but they missed the initial squeeze, whatever it is. Just when you look at this overall trend first, that will be your primary storyteller. That's going to give you the story pretty much at first. For instance, the V wave trade, it's still technically moving up. And it's been building higher lows across the day. So that is my first thing that I'll focus on. Even though it's up a lot, even though it's some no-name stock that we're not as confident in at this stage in the day to see it continue, well, trend's up. We can't argue that. So when we look at the total difference between the buys and the sells here, like on the bottom of the order book, okay, well, it looks like the sellers slightly outweigh the buyers here, correct? At 131 or so thousand shares on the ask down below, and about 111,000 or so on the bid down below, right? See that there? So the sellers kind of outweigh the buyers. Does that mean this stock is dead? Does this mean that the stock is done for? No, that doesn't mean the stock is done. That isn't it, because it was probably very similar as it was squeezing up earlier still. Now, if this stock breaks support, on the chart here, and then it's still showing a slight favoring towards the sellers on the bottom here, then you could say that the buyers are losing the battle, they've stopped winning the battle, however you want to verbalize it to yourself. It's just to say, though, that look at the trend initially. This is going to be the biggest piece of the puzzle. Is it possible that this stock can make a freaking 1,000% move at some point? Every once in a blue moon, we'll get that anomaly, and a stock will make like 1,000% move in one day. It could actually happen. But that's just where I tell you, though, focus on the chart first. That's it. Real quick, just from the chat board right now, caught this from Phil S., one of our new members just joining us here. How do we find all quote unquote AI development companies, as big companies, including Microsoft, are investing in some of these to make their faster process or to make faster progress in AI? I can't read. So what Phil's asking is, how do we find these stocks before they make their better moves, right? That's kind of what you're asking, Phil, more or less, right? So that would be to kind of answer that. And I mean this really, just every day we're here inside our live trading room. We're not only focused on AI stocks, but we're focused on stocks making extraordinary pops off of news. So each and every morning, we're doing the same thing here at 8 o'clock a.m., at 7:30 a.m. Eastern, as we gear towards the market open. There's going to be new stocks that will make news and pops and trends of their own. We need to see those stocks prove themselves to us. So even with this trade, W or V wave, when it first popped and like news came out, that sounds cool, right? But this stock easily could have just pulled right back down, broken even lower, loser. That's it. Is this stock a good swing trade to where it's possible like maybe a larger company could buy them out, maybe a larger company can make a partnership with them, like Phil said, or invest in them to make faster progress in AI? It's very possible, but as a new IPO, you can't trust it. There's just no data for you to work with here at all. Not even to say that I don't know the company and like who they are, what they do, but just this company has been barely public. So I'd rather work as a swing trade on a stock that has a lot more historical data to work with. So, different example here at Phil, because it's a good segue, but NVTS. I'm in NVTS right now live, currently. Top right of my screen, everyone should just, it's always there. My position manager, been on HIMS and Bulls, a swing trade, been in those. And NVTS as a day trade, I like the stock. I think there's a chance that this has swing trade potential. Why? Well, it popped for us back in November, but then came down. And then here back in May, I think that's when the news came out about NVIDIA making some partnership with them or investment in them. And then once they made this extraordinary pop and move, we didn't just jump into it immediately as a swing, but that's where you evaluate the long-term graph and you say, okay, this has been at least around for a few years. It's not like they only came out last week. Is there any sort of historical levels to work with on this type of trade? So that's where you could begin to evaluate, at least, like even after it first popped here. All right, maybe if it were to have pulled back, this could be good support to see get retested. If there is a resistance that may look to get broken over here, a little bit tougher to kind of use here, but this area not so bad. Kind of this trio of lines I'm kind of quickly plotting. 1, 2, then over here. Got some fuzziness over it at this point back in May into August of 23. But point being is that otherwise it was holding pretty good as resistance. If this wants to be a healthier move for us over time, if you think that there's going to be more partnerships that come out for Navitas here, Semiconductor, they're an AI tech company too, then hey, you certainly want to see them hold over this area as support. That definitely helps my trade out. That's for sure. That's nice because my entry on this trade was based on a day trade first. I was mainly just kind of looking at this because we traded this stock from last week. It was popping last week for us. It was on my personal side list because I remembered it. Just it was in the back of my head, right? For as much as we scan for new stocks every morning, there could always be stocks that just you remember because you made money on it or it made a pretty nice move and maybe you missed it. You're like, oh, I don't want to miss that again, right? So that's kind of what happened. This was already on my side list. Now here, though, 10:30 in the morning, reversal time. So I was hoping for this 850 level to be support to start. If I can find the trade. There we go. 850 of support just from earlier, or I mean from the last week. Just I had a couple of lines already plotted. The historical lines that we just plotted here definitely helped my cause. But what made this all the more sweeter here for this trade was, at least before we started this workshop, a 418,000 share buyer popped up. So I'm really hoping that this is going to be the thing that gives us the edge to bounce. Now, that's just a quick conversation about the mechanics of order flow and trade strategy. But to jump back to Phil's original question, hey, being here each and every morning, you're going to find new stocks that are coming out with news. Myself and Rich, are always posting news on stocks that are moving. So anytime we see it, we'll look to make that post. And you don't want to swing trade a low float stock. So that's where I'm just kind of telling you. If the V wave trade wants to be some long term good, stock, good swing trade, I feel like they're going to have to come out with news about common stock offering. The float is so low that you can't trust it. Not even the IPO aspect of it. That alone makes it, not trustworthy enough so far. But for this stock to be 3 million share float, they've got to do some sort of common stock. They'll probably tank down to 4. Wouldn't shock me. So point being is that you want a stock with a larger float, and you want a stock that has at least some history, at least some charting to work with here. The NVTS will actually probably just get right from Benzinga. That'd probably be easier. So what's the float on my NVTS? Because those are two separate AI tech-based companies. Well, the float's 134 million, a little bit more than the V Wave, right? So at least when you're with us in our room and you take our class, Phil, I see that you have access to the phase 1 course. So even there, I begin to talk about liquidity and volume, and you want to have a stock that has at least a higher float. If you're trying to like swing trade it, if you're doing a long term or a week long, couple week long move, if you're thinking there's some sort of good movement on it, I mean, that's where even Soon, SOUN, this is an AI company that we traded a few times back here in February of 24. Then back, obviously, as you could see, the end of last year. So we focused on it from the end of last year, and we were more keen to trade it there, even more from back in February, simply because of the move that we caught back earlier last year. You don't forget these types of pops, or if you do, you kind of just look at the chart and you're like, oh, that's right, I forgot we traded this Soon stock back in February. So that's how you kind of keep on top of these a little bit. You're going to forget about them here and there, because every now and then the volume will wane back down, the stock will pull back tremendously, it'll consolidate for months, and then maybe more news comes out, pops back up again. But this is just where, though, I want to point out, I know we're focused on AIs right now, like Phil was asking, and I was kind of talking about the V wave trade. But just to mention here, any company can come out with good news, but that good news could also be washed away within a moment's notice. So it was right here, as you could see, February 13th, where NVIDIA actually broke off their partnership with Soon. They broke off their partnership with, I think, APLD also, if I'm not mistaken. That was February 13th there, I think it was. Maybe it was at least afterwards. One of these days was when the news came out about NVIDIA saying, the hell with this. I'm going to pull our investments from these companies. And all of these stocks got brutalized. So just want to point out that could happen with any sector. It doesn't need to be AI. Shoot, it could be the car industry. It could be autonomous driving. It could be Bitcoin. It could be healthcare. Any of the. I mean, hey, just look what happened with HIMS when Novo broke off their partnership with HIMS, right? So just want to point out that with any of these partnership news that come out, yeah, it could lead to a good swing trade, but that's not the end all be all. That's not the end of the story. You could also have news that comes out that wipes that move out completely. Like even from, funny enough, it was actually Friday, but funny enough, on HIMS, news came out where lawmakers were pressing the FDA to kind of investigate HIMS about making fake GLP-1 drugs, right? So had no idea that was going to happen. I went to make a late breakfast. I had my stop set right at 59, my entry price. I come back, I just see this giant red freaking candle. what the hell just happened here? I was up like a decent amount of my trade too. I'm like, all right, so just be careful. Any news can come out good, but also bad on the flip side. Um, Now, let's also get to a couple other questions and emails that did come in from just before. Give me a brief moment here. All right, so this one is from one of our new trial members, just kind of asking from earlier. How do you scan in the morning when Fausto was on earlier in the meeting? Why was he looking at Tesla early in the morning, and what led him to focus on that compared to other larger cap stocks? I heard him talk about Nvidia too, but Tesla made the much better pop. Yeah, so pretty much right away, I just want to point out that we're always focused on momentum. We're always focused on just activity. So what does that mean? Well, for Tesla, by the time the market opened up, this was dropping, but then it made a much better bounce and move up by like 945. So we were focused on it pretty much at that point, I'd say. Not every larger cap stock was moving as well as Tesla was. So that's where I want to point out that if you love a specific stock, it's not going to make the same move every day. So if you're kind of sitting there waiting for yours to pop and others are moving better, opportunity cost is everything. We don't want to be stuck wasting our time watching a stock just not move or just stuck. It's sluggish. So Nvidia didn't make as great of a pop today. Palantir dropped off today. Contrary to those, AMD had a pretty good pop this morning. I'd call that out myself. So we'll be scanning myself, Rich, Fausto, and if anything comes out with good momentum, then we have to also check the order book. So if a stock pops, again, we need to see, all right, is the spread good? Does this stock have good spread, tight difference between the bid and the ask? Not all of these large cap stocks have the same liquidity. Tesla, Nvidia, Palantir, AMD, all of those do have pretty good volume for the price. But when you look at like Coinbase, well, hey, this is a little similar to Tesla in terms of the price. The liquidity sucks though. There's like really bad volume on the order book for this stock. So just want to point out that A, momentum in terms of just the overall trend. Then B, does the stock even have good orders out there? Is the spread respectably tight? Do we have icebergs that could serve as support resistance? I'll pull up level 4 right now again here and I'll show Tesla. But let's just say for Tesla, if you happen to see a resistance level, an iceberg on the ask, it's acting as resistance, that's a good thing. Don't think that's a bad thing. Like I told you before with V Wave, that kept going up, 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 up. Granted, most stocks do not do that. So, eventually it's going to pull back or you'll see a resistance pop up. Well, that resistance could provide as a good entry level if it gets broken over. So even from earlier here, as we look at Tesla, as it kind of made its first run, we got big resistance, like real big one up top here, 325, 95,000 shares on the ask. Let's just use this for right now. This red dot. See this, kind of spike on the far right side of my screen here, the CVP column. I teach this all throughout our class, more in the phase 2 course, the opening print, right? So just more or less to say, hey, this in its own creates resistance. It's a 405,000 share block transaction that took off right at the market open. The more that this keeps knocking into resistance, something's got to give. So resistance is good. And even here at 325, all right, it looks like it kind of just popped over it at first, but then came back down, right? Well, that's not surprising that it came back down and failed initially. You would like to think, A, the first test of resistance, you should expect to see that resistance hold. If it's a break above it, probably a little pop and drop to begin. Now, though, this also kind of leans right into reversal time around 10:30 in the morning, 10:15, 10:30. 1040. Just, you should expect this to slow down. But the more that this keeps nipping and testing resistance, that's where you're expecting continuation or at least a better move shortly after. So that's where you're able to say, all right, well, once this reemerges back over this price, not only did it move up, but actually maybe like 5 minutes after it broke over $325, about 5 minutes later, you have this big iceberg popping up on the buy side. This was actually a buy order here to help support the stock on its next move up. So I just want to point out that, hey, in terms of identifying these stocks before they move, you have to be in our trading room and following what Fausto is calling out, like in the chat board. And if it's not him, it's me. If it's not me, it's Rich. Rich does a lot of the heavy lifting as I'm on private, sessions with students, working with them in the live market. But either way, if you're getting to your desk at 9:30 in the morning Eastern, you're way too late. You're way too behind. And I'd even say if you're getting to our live trading room at 9 in the morning Eastern, you're kind of hustling. You kind of have to hustle, and you shouldn't have a need to hustle. If you're at your desk even at 8:30 Eastern time, you have a lot of time to sort yourself out, to know what stocks are already moving. Of those stocks, where are the iceberg orders? The more prepared I am, then the less overwhelmed I am by the time the market open hits. You know what I mean? So um, even for a V wave right now as we speak. All right, well, hey, we at least have resistance, $9. It actually showed here pretty nicely, orangish line. The first time it tested resistance at $9, guess what? It held perfect. It crashed into it, but it pop drop. I call that a perfect test of resistance, because to my expectation, this should hold and reject. Now, though, the more that this could press up against this level in a smaller concentration of time, I'll feel better. Now, from here to here is a decent chunk of time, from 12:08 to 12:38, 12:40, about 30 plus minutes, basically. That's a lot of time. So, no surprise that it rejects again here. If this is the end of the road, then so be it, because it's definitely overdue. But if this keeps testing it, not within every 30 minutes, but if it can kind of scrunch up against that resistance in a smaller span of time, I would feel pretty good about at least trying the trade, making sure that your stop is right below that level, maybe right below here at worst. But otherwise, that's the game plan. That's the game plan. And if you're getting to your desk at 9:30 Eastern, you're like turning your computer on, opening up your platform right then and there, you're going to be like pulling your hair out, be overwhelmed. Things are going to be moving way faster than they should be for you, right? So, just as long as you're at your desk, give yourself an hour to prep. The world's in the palm of your hand at that time. So, I'm sure that you're still going to miss a couple stocks and moves and this and that, but we miss moves all the time. Right now, as I'm teaching a workshop, I'm missing moves, right? So when you learn to accept, to get over that and just focus solely on strategy, then it blocks out all the noise. And for any of the stocks that align with your strategy, it's like basically falling directly into your lap for you to take. That's exactly what led me to jump into the V Wave trade at 380. I wish I held those shares, but otherwise, for that resistance to get broken over, all right, well, I'll at least feel confident on the first test to see that try and flip into a support, 386 to 378, that area. So more or less, that's where I took my first entry, right? All right, folks, let's see. Any other questions that came in here? I was going to say earlier to our members inside our live trading room, I made a joke just before. I said our word of the day is tree, as in TREE, in the sense that I have this giant tree being removed from my parking lot right outside my home office. And thankfully enough, actually, for the brunt of this workshop, I haven't heard any noise. So I actually avoided a lot of loud stuff happening just before. Folks, if you're on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, etc., let me know if there's any other questions you'd want me to go over. Obviously, as a student, Alan, Kathleen, Rich, Brian, Steve, Michael, all of us inside our live trading room, a lot of us I've worked with just throughout the last week into this morning in coaching. Let me know if there's any other stocks you'd want me to check out, at least here before we finish up. For new trial members joining us here, I see LV joining us. I see Jerry, John, who else just joining us across this week, just to say, we do this workshop every Monday. It's just supplemental content and education to not just like your trial membership. Actually, this is very important as a trial. But when you join us as a student, just stay in touch with these workshops still, but you'll get access to our main curriculum, our full A to Z library of our phase 1, 2, and 3 classes. That is where we teach everything in full. So, these workshops are kind of just a quick little touch up just on a week to week matter. April asking, hey, can you check out the Hood trade? Yeah, absolutely. When I check out Hood, I'm going to just check out IBIT right away just because I want to see, is Bitcoin trying to make another move? And, we're kind of holding under 120 pretty well here. So for the most part, give me a moment. There we are. So, we've been holding under 120 pretty well, not only just overnight, but it's a big psychological level. So the more that we can test and nip this resistance at 120, we should make a pretty easy breakout. But that just leaves me to say maybe Hood's making a pretty good move just on its own right now. Yeah, it's at the high of the day. Nice little push right now. Obviously, very strong stock overall. Got a doji candle here for the most part. It's off by 1 penny. It's a doji, a 109.75. So that's all but a historical level for you to watch. 110 resistance psychological level is a $10 price to watch there. So just keep in mind, like, hey, the more this makes lower highs under this, just be careful for a big drop, a shake lower. And if it doesn't do that, then cool. But this definitely needs to blast over this 110 level and flip it into support next. Otherwise, it wouldn't shock me if this tries to like find new support at a lower price. But if Bitcoin keeps going up, then I'm sure Hood will look to go up with it. That's all. Bill, you really love ETHE, huh? There, I see that 3 separate posts from our friend Bill inside the trading room. Bill just finishing up a workshop at Tom Sosnoff last week, I think, right? Yeah, I think Ethereum's supposed to be even stronger right now than Bitcoin, but that's just for the time being. But the thing is with Ethereum is that it's nowhere near all-time highs yet. And with the ETF here, maybe it will look to push up higher, but I would just rather have you, Bill, focus on Ethereum if you're looking at that ETF. So that's where 4,000 is a psychological level, at least for you here. So keep that in mind. But, just otherwise, the highs back from 2024, in the beginning, the end of 2024 right there. Just kind of zipping through. It's tough to just give like actual analysis, guys, on these trades because kind of just shooting a few stocks to me here very quick. So, if I had these sent to me earlier, I'd be able to take a little bit more time and go through them. SMR is breaking all-time highs from the end of last week, so it's obviously just like a very healthy company. Resistance, you would figure at $50, $55 would be your next $5 level there. There's not much I could really provide, though, unfortunately. Let's see. Maybe I could pop this up on Bookmap. Guys, anytime you want me to check out stocks, it would definitely be better to send them earlier only because it gives me more time to give you analysis and real advice instead of me just trying to talk out my ass right now. So here I will tell you on SMR, well, $5 level, you got 50,000 share seller at $55. So that would be resistance for the time being. Rocket Lab, someone typing in that right there. Let's see. $50 resistance, 44. 44.50 for support. But with this though, you already have a couple support levels. This is kind of your largest, but I don't have the data from last week on this, so I don't know if that was support from last week and it just popped back up again. But 44.59, I would say, is current support here on this trade from Anna. All right, but I'll tell you, if you have any other trades you'd want me to go over, definitely let me know. Just whether it be later today, you could shoot me your trading journal over, and I could review that with you on the side. For any of our gold, platinum, and diamond students of CTU, most of you already know this, but definitely schedule your coaching just so I can have privatized time with you and give you 30+ minutes. One of our diamond students earlier, I definitely told him, I'm like, listen, let's just reschedule to tomorrow, give you a full 30 minutes instead of 15. I want to make sure that I can get as much time in with you. So that's where otherwise, if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me over a quick shoot me over a quick email if it's with your journal, or just schedule your coaching one-on-one. V-Wave trade holding the VWAP. Yeah, I saw that from before. I wrote that earlier in the trading room, I think, like in the morning. It's way over the VWAP though. I could see this coming down to the VWAP price later on. Big trees fall hard. Remember that. So, can we cheerlead this stock and like hope that this keeps going up? Of course. Like I will, absolutely. But when this thing shits the bed, just don't be surprised. Don't be like, oh no, where did that come from? Like, we've been waiting for this to happen all morning at this point, and with a low float stock, it's going to happen eventually. You just can't time it. That's just where it's just better to be safe than sorry. I'd rather wait to see this stock retest resistance numerous times before I look to jump in. And then otherwise, if I miss that, then it's a matter of seeing resistance flip into support. But otherwise, with V wave here, notice that it broke over the VWAP price and ran. It never really came back down to the VWAP price since. So if this is going to fail to break higher, just be careful because the VWAP is so far down on this one. I could see it just coming immediately down to there, then perhaps even lower towards like $4 here, CVP spike just later on. All right, guys. We're going to finish up Traders Talk for right now because I was good enough here. I figure at some point these tree cutters are going to come back, start making all sorts of noise, so probably won't be able to hear my own thoughts, let alone you hear me speak. So, folks, if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me over a question, an email, your journal, right over to josh@c2trading.com. Then otherwise, if you're on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, etc., just make sure to be a friend, tell a friend, hit the follow or subscribe button down there at CyberTradingU. Actually, I went right into V-Wave here. I forgot to show off my fancy little check this out. Yeah, check this out here. Toss that up. Yeah, I got new artwork. Check that out, right? So I'll show you here briefly before I finish up. So it is a cowboy riding a bull, and it looks like you got the moon right behind him, right? I got it at an antique shop just yesterday, and my thought behind it was, well, I need new artwork, but otherwise, obviously, bull and the bear for the stock market. So you're riding a bull, right? So that sounds pretty cool. You're riding a bull market, right? As we are currently in. And, hey, the moon, right? Why the moon? Well, at least for me in my stock market brain, the slang behind it is to the moon, as in the stock that you're trading going to the moon. Hey, who knows? Maybe later on today, that's just where we'll see V-Wave end up. Maybe this is going right to the moon here in just a bit. But otherwise, if you're on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc., just again, be a friend, tell a friend, hit the follow or subscribe button right here at CyberTradingU. And then otherwise, we invite you to join us inside our live trading room each and every day. Just go right down to the link scrolling down below on the bottom. We look forward to seeing you there. But, for all of us here collectively, our next audio broadcast will be later on today. Later on today at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, just with the afternoon meeting. I'll talk to you all then. Take care.